Hello Fear Seekers, and welcome back to the channel. Well, it's finally here, guys. Halloween is right around the corner, and I couldn't be more excited. To send you into the festivities properly, filled with a kind of fearful frivolity, I've collected some more stories that took place on this most wonderfully spooky of holidays. Today, we're going to be picking up where we left off last week, and diving into some disturbing, allegedly true, Halloween horror stories. Now that we are closer to the day, I'd like you to know that I've prepared a special video for the 31st, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Now without further ado, sit back, keep your trepidations at bay and your treats close, and get ready to ferment your fears. I am a sensitive. I have seen and experienced the paranormal since I was little. My experiences range from surprising to scary and can happen at any time. I don't control it. The one thing I can count on, though, is something almost always happens to me around Halloween. I'm sure most people know that Halloween is the time when the veil between worlds is thinnest. It's not just that day. Sometimes as much as 2 weeks before and after Halloween, the veil is thin enough to severely affect sensitives. I have a few sensitive friends and know that some can even feel the veil thinning. Responses to the veil range depending on sensitivity. I have experienced lucid dreaming, vivid dreams, and severe anxiety. I do have anxiety, which I take medication for. Last Halloween, I had a panic attack come out of nowhere. I was shaking and could hardly breathe, for no reason. I barely made it back to the car. I know it was because of the veil. I don't usually have those attacks since starting my medicine, and I went back to the same mall a few months later and experienced no anxiety. I don't remember everything that happens on Halloween, so the experiences I do remember are usually among the scariest. I will start with the ones that happened the longest time ago. That Halloween, I had a few things happen to me, as expected. I can't remember them since they didn't really stand out. This experience was more creepy than scary. It was either Halloween night or just after. I couldn't sleep, so I was playing on my phone in the dark. I decided it was time to make myself sleep, so I went to put my phone down. When I did, I saw a dark, cat-sized shadow jump at my face. I jerked back, thinking my black cat had jumped from the nightstand to my bed. I never felt her land on the bed. I looked around for her just to realize she was asleep on the other side of my bed. She would have had to climb over me to lay there from that angle. It took me a while to sleep that night. The next one is my sister's experience. It happened either that same year or a little after that. She isn't as sensitive as I am, so her experiences are fewer but stand out more. She was riding home with her boyfriend from the Halloween gathering they had gone to. It was dark, of course. When he pulled into the driveway to our house, she said the lights landed on something large running on all fours. It was humanoid shaped. He didn't see it. She told me about it, and I told her it was fine. She was inside, and I told her not to go outside again that night. Last Halloween was my most active one. It was a week or so before it when I had my panic attack. I also had several lucid dreams and one very vivid dream that I still cannot convince myself was just a dream. I also saw much more than ghosts. I have a job that requires me to go to customers' houses to try to make contact with them. That was what I was doing when 2 of these incidents occurred. I can't remember if they happened on the same night or not. It was just before Halloween. I was on dimly lit back roads in my small town. In my town, most of the back roads are dark, so I was lucky to have some extra light. I rounded a curve and my lights lit up something standing on the other side of a fence. It was a gray mass that seemed almost two-dimensional. The best way to describe it would be almost like the reports of Bigfoot. It was taller than a human, but shaped similarly. It was not Bigfoot, though. It had no definition to it. I believe it belonged to a different place. I drove faster after seeing it, and took a different road back. The next thing I saw was very similar to the previous creature, except it flew. I was in my own car. With the way the windshield slants, I only saw it for a moment. It was almost like a pterodactyl, but was gray and had no definition like the other one. I describe it that way for lack of a better way to describe it. Obviously, I don't think we have extinct flying dinosaurs in my small town in Tennessee. These two creatures sound absurd, I know, and even I would have a hard time believing someone when they describe them. My last experience of that Halloween was the most terrifying experience I have ever had around Halloween. I was pulling into my driveway at night after getting off work. It was late, and everyone else would have gone to bed by then. It was the first time I had seen something like it, and hopefully the last. I understand why my sister was freaked out that time. A large humanoid creature on all fours was running through the yard. It was only a few seconds I had seen it, but it was close. It was big, maybe twice the size of our chocolate lab. Once we passed each other, I didn't see it again. Needless to say, I made a mad dash into the house and wouldn't let the dogs out to use the bathroom. I am sharing my experiences mainly to warn other sensitives. Halloween is not always fun and games for us. The nights can be dangerous. During the day, anxiety and depression attack us. Once you're aware of what's going on, it will usually be easier for you. If you need any help, you can always reach out to other sensitives, mediums, or witches for protection techniques. I've been sitting on this for a bit for a few reasons. It is really long. I wanted to be able to gather facts to support my story, and quite frankly, I didn't want to type it up while in my house. As you can probably tell with some of my other stories, I have been engulfed in the gray of this world since I was a child. Until recently, I have never met someone who is as sensitive as me. It was enlightening and equally terrifying. So here is my story. I've been renting my house from a family member for several years now. Since day one, I knew it was haunted. I could feel the energy change the moment I stepped inside, but I could also tell it wasn't necessarily negative. I'm not a stranger to the paranormal, so when little things would happen like items moving/going missing, inaudible conversations in other rooms, or even my dog looking at an empty corner or wall, I wouldn't usually react. I even nicknamed the ghost Bernadette, and would jokingly ask her/it to stop. However, within the last 6 months, the activity has intensified. I have had individuals in my house who are complete skeptics, but they have witnessed glasses thrown across the room and shatter everywhere, pictures falling from the wall, something/someone walking down the empty hallway, hearing it, and hearing people talking that weren't there. I even had to have my brother check that my gas alarm was still active because of the random areas in the house smelling like rotten eggs. Halloween night, I had a very small get-together, 6 people. One of my guests brought her wife, who I had only met one other time. While my friends were playing games and passing out candy, my friend's wife, we will call her Emily, pulled me to the side, seemingly upset, and stated she needed to discuss something with me. She first asked if I knew about Mary. I'm running names through my head that my coworker had mentioned, and I've never heard of a Mary. I obviously told her no, and she proceeds to tell me a very detailed story about my house. She explained that I had 3 spirits in my house, a spirit named Mary, a spirit named Franklin, and that I had a spirit who was always with me named Gary, she thinks. She stated Mary had died in the house a long time ago. Franklin had died on the land before Mary from a plowing accident and was still in his death state. She also confirmed my suspicions of extra activity. A few nights prior, in the middle of the night I was in bed and jumped up from my sleep from a huge bang against my bedroom wall and a picture falling onto the end of the bed. Obviously, I was startled, and especially spooked when I could see the indentation in my wall from what appeared to be something that had hit it. I jokingly said, "Not cool, Bernadette," and went back to bed. Emily knew about this. She knew he had hit my wall and said it was Franklin's way of trying to get my attention, that when things are thrown in the house or fall off the wall, that it is Franklin. Apparently, he is angry because I don't react. In my mind at this moment, I'm thinking, who the hell is this woman? I do not know her, and I haven't told anything to her wife about my creepy house. I'm open with my experiences on here, but I'm very hush in person because of others' reactions. So I ask, "How do you know this stuff?" And her response still, as I am typing this, chills me to my bones. "Because he is standing right behind you." My first reaction is to look behind me. Nothing. My second reaction is to ask why I can't see him. He doesn't want me to. My third reaction is, why does he want to scare me? He wants attention. Since that night, the activity in my previously mildly creepy house has been off the charts. I don't get spooked easy. I have seen things that you see on horror movies. But my house is scary. The energy has shifted. I feel like I am constantly on fight or flight mode. I am typing this at work because I feel like someone is constantly looking over my shoulder, and I don't want whatever/whoever it is to read this. I know I sound crazy. It's just my dog and me in the house, and even he has been acting differently. I've caught him multiple times sitting in the hall looking at nothing, whimpering, and then he runs under the bed. I literally have to drag him out. When I'm changing clothes or taking a shower, I feel uncomfortable because I feel someone is watching me. The house is nearly unbearable to live in at the moment, and I've been at a loss of how to make it go back to my mildly spooky house. I have used my sage twice now, and I think it just pisses Franklin off. With that being said, I have amazing friends and connections to the historical site in my town. With some research I found Mary, and some other interesting details. Mary Frank, 48, died suddenly in my house on August 26, 1919, from neuralgia. Her spouse, Charles Frank, held the funeral in my house. I haven't been able to find a Franklin yet. However, before the Franks occupied my house, it was a stable for horses. It could be a huge coincidence that Mary's last name is Frank, and maybe Emily didn't get a clear message. I'm honestly not sure. I have asked her since, and she still thinks his name is Franklin. She has even come back to my house and told him to stop. He won't listen. I do plan to keep researching the area for a man named Franklin, but I'm not sure there will be any documentation. Another interesting thing is that I did know a Gary, and he has actually been brought up before. Gary was my mother's best friend's husband who passed away from a heart attack when I was young. At the time, we lived on 20+ acres of land and he loved to go hunting on our property. When he passed, it was his wishes to have his ashes spread on our land. I was told many years ago that Gary watched over me. I know the activity in my house is increasing. I'm not 100% sure why. Maybe because I am more aware now. But I don't feel in danger. I never have because I know Gary is there, now from multiple sources. As it says on the tin, this is exactly that. My memories of the years I lived in a haunted house aged 8 to 18. It's a little long, but buckle up if you want to hear my actual account of actually living in one and not the Hollywood version. Me and my parents still talk about this, but I'm 30 and engaged now in my own home, and my parents moved soon after I moved out. I guess I just wanted to get it out there because it's all true and I've tried to explain it to so many people who just don't believe it. I thought maybe this community would hear me. The lady that sold my parents this house warned us of weird things going on, but my Christian parents ignored it and felt we would be fine. At that time, I think they thought it was all bollocks, to be honest. It was a fixer-upper, but definitely a great house with lots more space than our first. Anyway, as the weeks went by, things got a bit weirder. I quickly learned when playing in the street, this was the 90s, that children in my neighborhood thought my house was haunted, and to be fair, it being an old, tall Victorian house with a rickety, overgrown Gothic pathway, it was creepy to a kid, and there were many horrible stories about things that happened inside. Kids wouldn't come around and play at my house due to this, and I earned a stigma being the new girl that lives in the haunted house at school. The house was 3 stories high with banisters running the entire way up, and out of nowhere things started dropping from the top of the house to the lower landing through this banister gap. Proper poltergeist stuff. Ornaments, vases, dog toys that were never upstairs. Our dogs wouldn't go up to the top of the house by the attic. All they would do is bark and whimper at the landing, and I was also absolutely terrified of the entire top floor. I was an only child, and I wouldn't go upstairs when home alone because it frightened me so damn much. All I can describe it as soon as the light wasn't on upstairs, I could feel a presence there with me. An angry, bitter, cold feeling like a shadow behind me getting bigger and bigger. I'd sprint as fast as I could downstairs, and strangely even now, more than a decade on, I still have bad dreams about my legs slowing down on the final staircase like I'm running through water and something is chasing me. So anyway, the weird stuff continued. I started knocking on a wall one evening, playing as a kid, and to my delight it would respond to me, knocking back, responding and copying my pattern. My mom started absolutely freaking out at this when I showed her, running outside to demand who was knocking to her kid all night, to find just brick wall and air. No one was on the other side. On Halloween, we all heard a scream from the attic, only to Brave checking it out to find it totally vacant and fine. By this point, my parents were spooked. Being religious, they brought a priest in who informed them the upstairs was very negative spiritually and they should remodel the entirety of it to try and get the spirit out. He told them to gut the attic, bless the area, and ask the spirit to leave. Okie dokie. So they began to remodel the attic into a bedroom/bathroom, etc. This spirit did not like this. At one point, my father claims his leg was pulled through the floor, and sure enough, his leg went through the floor into the downstairs bathroom ceiling. Later, when we had a guest in a separate part of the house, all of a sudden part of the ceiling fell on his head for absolutely no reason. The builders said it was a complete fluke and didn't make any sense. On the last night of converting the attic, I had the worst dream of my life, which I will never forget. My bedroom was en suite, so it had 2 doors and both were heavy on hinges. Like you couldn't open them without pushing down on the handle, just for reference. So this dream. I was watching a man and a woman argue. The woman was wearing Victorian clothes. I likened them to Oliver the musical characters at the time. And the man was in a gentleman's suit. They were arguing back and forth and I couldn't make out their words clearly, like I was listening underwater. She suddenly looked at me, straight in the eyes, and started screaming and pointing to the floor. Now, trigger warning because this was terrifying to see as a kid in a dream and nothing I'd ever seen in any film or TV show at that age. On the floor was a dead baby, face down. I woke up, hyperventilating in my bed, thinking it was all over, when I looked down at my own bedroom floor to see the same dead baby, but it was crying and contorting. The woman slammed open my bathroom door, the one on hinges, and ran across my room and out the other door. Both my doors were literally swinging, which was physically impossible without somebody standing doing it, and all I could hear was screams and cries. I screamed and woke again to my mom shouting for me to wake up, saying she could hear a racket of slamming doors upstairs, but when she checked I was tucked up in bed, just tossing and turning. I told her my dream and she told me to come sleep with her. Years later, when I was old enough, she admitted to me that they did research on the house after the priest visit and found information that a maid had become impregnated by the housemaster and was forced to kill or abort the baby in the attic. My mom, being spiritual but also Christian, said she had tried to make peace with this spirit after learning this. Nuts, eh? This is just a sprinkling of the crazy things that happened over the years in that house. But I bet you're wondering if the conversion etc. worked. Well, interestingly, it did for us. We all were able to sleep very happily in the new guest room and no more poltergeist stuff went on. There was still an eerie energy in the loft conversion, but not a threat. It kinda never felt like it was our home, but I'm not sure if old houses ever do. I will say the dog stood firm and hated the upstairs the entire time we lived there. They never accepted it and would bark still. So nothing really weird happened until years later when I was 17 and I got a new boyfriend, who was awful and abusive in the end. But anyway, we were staying in the converted bedroom up there whilst I was home from uni. I never had told him any of the stories of the house, as we were very new to dating. Anyway, we went to bed, watched a movie, and fell asleep. I was awoken to him screaming, saying a Victorian woman was standing over me, watching me sleep, and told him very aggressively that he needs to leave. I kinda didn't mind that. She had good judgment on him. So yeah, there it is. I didn't believe in ghosts until I lived with one for 10 years. Feel free to ask questions. In 2015, I worked a couple weeks at one of those Halloween stores that are in town for the season. This particular location was in an old Kmart building that had been empty for a number of years. A particular problem for this building was the homeless population breaking in to have a safe place to sleep out of the cold. My first day, I was put in the back area, shuffling stock onto pegs. Being my first day, I hadn't met everyone, so when I saw movement out of my peripheral vision, I didn't pay much attention to it. Way off in the back left corner of the building, outside of the double doors going into the old stock room, I saw a man. Very tall, maybe 6'3", Hispanic, one of the biggest Mexicans I ever saw. Long curly dark hair, dark complexion, white t-shirt and blue jeans. I figured it was simply a coworker I had not met, and I didn't think much of it. A few moments later, I looked up and the fellow was gone. A shift later, I'm an opener. Our manager tasks a coworker and I with going into the old stock room to look for a cart for stock. We get back there and a motion-activated light in a hallway on the other side of a swinging door turns on. Then the next. My coworker freaks and says, "Oh crap, it's probably another homeless person who broke in. Come on, let's go catch them and make sure the back door is locked." So we chase after the movement. We get into the hall, which has a door on either end, to see no one. But in the next area, where the back door is, the light's turned on. We run in there, and a stairwell leads up from this area to the old offices. The lights going up the stairs start turning on like someone is going up, but there was no one there. Not a rat, a moth, or so much as a cockroach to trigger the motion sensors. We double-check the back door and it is securely chained and locked. My coworker turns white as a sheet and says, "That's it. I'm done. We're getting the hell out of here." A shift or two later, I ended up in the back area again, shuffling stock. From my peripheral vision, I see the same man again, but this time he is maybe 15 feet away. I pay attention this time, and could make out the detail pretty well. His clothes were dirty, and he wasn't wearing shoes. The guy was just standing there, though, not moving. After a few unnerving moments of seeing him there in my peripheral vision, I look up directly at him, and he's no longer there. That's odd, I thought, not connecting the dots. I just shrug it off and continue working. My final shift was on Halloween. I'm sorting merch between carts, putting broken stuff in one cart and resellable stuff in the other. The next thing I realize, someone is standing a foot away, directly in front of me. Looking down at the cart between us, I can see him perfectly in my peripheral vision. I could see the grime on his clothes. I could see him breathing. I knew in that moment if I looked up he wouldn't be there. I suddenly got irrationally angry, a type of anger I've never felt. I say to him without even thinking, "I know what you are. I know what you're trying to do. I am not afraid of you. You are not welcome here. By the power of the priesthood, I command you to leave, now." He growls one guttural growl, and then is gone. No fading out, no puff of wind and smoke, just gone. At my current job, a year or two later, one of my coworkers and good friends is a devout Catholic. I told him about the ghost of the homeless guy in the old Kmart building, and he just stands there and stares at me. "Do you have any idea what you did, and how dangerous it was? You exorcised it. You're not a priest. You should have never been able to do that. You're damn lucky that was just a ghost and not a demon." I never even considered that, nor did I consider my words before I spoke them to the ghost. It was spontaneous, like muscle memory, or like I was being guided. My friend still says I was lucky, and not to do some stupid crap like that again. The last year I lived on campus for college, I was haunted by something malevolent. Before that year, I'd lived mainly in a newer dorm building, which is probably why I never had an encounter before this one, despite the city's reputation for being a ghost magnet. But by my third year, I was tired of dining hall food and cramped living spaces, so my best friend, we'll call her Anna, and I decided to live in the university-owned apartments just off campus for that year. The apartment was nice enough, nothing fancy, just a bedroom, kitchen, living area, bathroom, and pantry. It was a bit run down and very clearly was built in the 60s, with only a couple of refurbishments since then. But between Anna's love for decoration and my knack for home repair, we made it work. At this point, it's important that you know that Anna is a witch, and while I'm hesitant to put a name on it, I'm very good at picking up on vibes, or energies, if you want to get more mystical. We both tend to attract things to us, and normally they just go away if we ignore them for a day or so. Anyway, the first time we'd set foot in the apartment, we could tell there were a few presences in the building, but none of them seemed malicious. So we made a blanket statement to any spirits present that so long as they didn't screw around with us, they were welcome to come and go as they pleased. They were there first, after all. Things were good for a while, but about a month in, that started to change. At first it was just extra presences in the building, but it was getting close to Halloween and Samhain, and spirits tend to be more active at that time, so we sort of just ignored it. Most of them passed through after a couple of days anyway. It was at least another week or so before we caught on that there was something seriously wrong. It started with a door. The door to Anna's and my bedroom wouldn't stay closed. We'd wake up to it creaking open all hours of the night, or come back to the apartment to find it open when we knew we had left it closed. We even stuck slips of paper into the door when we closed it to keep track. Now, for all that I believe in ghosts, I'm still pretty skeptical. My first thought was not that a ghost was opening our door, but that the door was at least 5 years old, made of cheap, lightweight foam core, and not hung properly in its frame. So I fixed it. I squared the door up, tightened the hinges, and realigned the doorknob and lock. After I had done that, the door would close with an audible click and wouldn't open without turning the doorknob all the way, no matter how hard you pushed or pulled. So imagine my surprise the next day, as Anna and I were hanging out with some friends. The bedroom door we had closed swung wide open. It only got worse from there. The next morning I woke up with odd scratches on my arms, and I cut my nails very short at the time, so it's not like I could have scratched myself in my sleep. Obviously, not a good sign. It was the weekend, so Anna and I went to a local metaphysical shop to grab incense, candles, and the like to do a home clearing. For whatever reason, it didn't stick. The door would still open on its own, and we'd hear sounds like somebody was moving around in our apartment. Sometimes the sounds would be in the same room as us. We felt watched, too. No matter what we were doing, we felt somebody's eyes on us. It got to the point that I, a grown woman, started getting changed under my blankets. Not only that, but a weird negative energy seemed to follow us around. Things kept seeming to go just slightly wrong. My coffee would spill before I even got a sip. Anna's bus pass that she kept in the same pocket of her wallet would constantly be misplaced. Automatic doors would close on us even if the button had just been pressed. I kept slipping on icy patches and nearly re-spraining my bad ankle. She narrowly avoided getting hit by people on bicycles and skateboards on the daily. They were little things, but they kept happening, and with the ominous presence in our apartment, we couldn't help but think that it wasn't a coincidence. I remember it really started coming to a head one day when I got back from work to find Anna and two of our friends sitting at the kitchen table staring at the far corner of the living room with nervous expressions on their faces. When I looked, there was nothing there, but I swear I could feel pure malevolence and rage emanating from the corner. "He's been there for an hour," Anna told me. At this point, I finally lost my temper. I dropped my bag in the bedroom, grabbed the atame off Anna's altar, and went back to the living room to stare down the empty corner. "Get out," I said. "We don't want you here. We've told you we don't want you here. I don't know how to be any clearer, so let's try this again. Get the hell out. Leave us alone, or I swear to God I'll find a way to hurt you. I promise you I will. Now get out." After that, the presence seemed to leave, and we thought it was over. But later that evening, as I was showering, I felt the presence again. It was only there for a split second before all of a sudden I felt like I had gotten punched in the back. All of the air went out of my lungs, my back felt bruised, and I almost slipped. Then, just as I got my bearings, the fire alarms went off. I wound up standing outside in the freezing cold, dripping wet, in nothing but a towel, slippers, and a cardigan for about 20 minutes. My back hadn't stopped hurting by the time Anna and I were able to go back inside, and after I'd gotten dressed I had her take a look at it. She told me there was a large, bright red mark right between my shoulder blades. She said it looked like I'd been hit, or maybe fallen backward and landed on something. Needless to say, we pulled out all the stops. Anna and I performed a full-on banishment ritual that night. The whole time the atmosphere in the apartment was angry and oppressive. It felt like the walls were closing in on me, and I swear I could feel something breathing down my neck. But I forced myself to ignore it, and when we finally finished the ritual, the pressure lifted. The entity was no longer in the apartment or attached to us, but that whole night we felt as though something was watching us through the window, which looked out onto a stone wall. We were pretty sure it was the entity, angry at its banishment. We closed the blinds and burned some incense to clear out any lingering negativity, But it still wasn't until sunrise that the angry presence completely left us, and I was finally able to sleep. I'm still not sure who or what that spirit was, why it chose us to harass, why it was able to hang around even after we'd done a cleansing. I'm not sure I want to know. I just hope that the banishment was enough, and it leaves me and Anna alone for good. Hey guys, glad to see you made it to the end of the video. Have you ever had a spooky encounter on Halloween? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like and hitting that subscribe button. I post 3 times a week, so there will be no shortage of spooky content. As always, if you have any scary stories you'd like to be told, be sure to send them in. Finally, don't forget to keep your eyes peeled for the Halloween special on the 31st. Alright guys, that just about wraps up the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So long, Fear Seekers. I'll see you in the next video.